Hi, ThatPaulGuy. So I made mention a few times that I was going to be working on a small form factor build. A couple of reasons for this, mainly because of the portability. When I go back and forth to my sister's house in Ocala, go see my sister Lisa and my brother-in-law Mark, I want to be able to bring something along that I can still use most of the computing power that I have at home, and my laptop just doesn't do it. If I try to do a video on the road and I try to edit it with my laptop, on the average it takes probably about 1.5 times the length of the video to go ahead and process that in 1080p. Well, I need to do something a little bit better than that, but I want to keep it portable. I had a couple different choices. One of them was in the Dark Flash DLM 22 that we talked about. I'm actually going to do that for another build. And the first choice, or the one choice that I went ahead and went with, was the CoolerMaster Elite 110. A couple reasons why I did this, and yes, it is a little bit heavier than the empty box because I've already done the build. And I'll go ahead and I'll show some B footage or B-roll footage of that and show you guys what's in there. But basically what I did is inside the box here is an MSI B450 Gaming Pulse AC motherboard. It's a mini ITX motherboard. It does have Wi-Fi on it, AC Wi-Fi. It's got 2 DIMM slots. It does have USB 3, but it does not have a Type-C adapter, which is fine because this box doesn't have a Type-C adapter on the front of it. As a matter of fact, the motherboard itself does not have one on the back of it. Anyway, regardless, solid motherboard. I've already checked it out a little bit. More than enough for my needs. Also has a M.2 slot on the bottom of it. That was, for me, I thought that was kind of ingenious. It's going to be a little bit harder for me to get to if I ever decide to go back and do that. But for this trick, I just wanted to use a regular SSD, so I didn't necessarily need the M.2 on the bottom. It's there if I need it, but I'm going to have to do a whole lot of unpacking if I'm going to take advantage of that. Attached to that, and you guys will see this as like I said, if I show some B-roll, I got a Ryzen 5 1600. Now this is the older version. This is just the 14 nanometer. This isn't the newer 12 nanometer. The reason why is because this is the CPU that was in my old editing rig and I took it out. So I figured I would go ahead and use it for this one since I already have it. The video card in it is an EVGA GTX 1660 black. We talked about this a little bit too when I did my video on what does the memory have to do with the video card thing. Solid card. It has just a little bit better performance than the RX 480 I've got sitting behind me, but it's about 2/3 the length. And I'm telling you, it just barely fit. It's a 2 3/4 inch wide, or 2 3/4 slot wide card. This makes room for 2+ slots. 2 slots on the end of the board and a little bit of room on the side. So one thing you'll also see or notice if you go to look at this box is that if you're trying to put a hard drive or a pair of hard drives along the side, they're on the same side as the video card. So if you're trying to put an expanded video card, something that's 2.5 or 2 3/4 wide, it's not going to fit with the hard drives in there. You're going to have to do something a little bit more creative. Thankfully, there is spot across the top of the cage in a separate thing. For the memory, I went ahead and used 16 gig of GSkill Ripjaw memory at I believe it's 3200. Yeah, I was about to say 3000, but I'm wrong. It's 3200. I got a 500 watt power, a 500 watt 80 plus EVGA power supply that's in it. Now these have regular ketchup and mustard cables. They're black sleeved, but you can fuss at me and laugh at me all you want. But guess what? You can't see them in this box. So for me, that was a perfect choice. It's an 80 plus power supply. It wasn't very expensive, and for what I need it for right now until I get, say, a small form factor, an SFX power supply in here, and it's going to do very well. One reason why you might say or might think that I would need a smaller power supply is when I do roll that B-roll footage, you'll be able to see just how close the CPU fan and the power supply fan, or the power supply itself, are to each other. It doesn't leave a whole lot of room, which scared me a little bit as far as thermals, but doing a little bit of testing and all that stuff, the thermals seem pretty well. They're pretty consistent. They're pretty good. And I've already done a lot of playing around with it and all. Not going to show that on here, but I have done some playing around with it, and the temperature's kept pretty good. For storage, I've got a 500 gigabyte Samsung EVO 860 SSD that's in here. It's across the top cage part of it that actually the top lifts off of it and you can screw it back down. And along with that, I've got a 2 terabyte Western Digital Black It operates at 7200 speed, and that's going to be for my Steam games and for backup files and all that stuff. And if I'm doing editing, I can put older files, or I can put, you know, stuff that I would normally use on that. So that's what went in the box. There's a couple of tips, a couple of things to be aware of if you're going to do a small form factor like this. Now, this isn't a how-to, but I will share with you a few tips that I did learn and that I figured out along the way. One is planning. You really got to figure out, and you got to kind of do almost a dry run of where you want to put things inside that box. You got to figure out, like I said about the hard drives not fitting with a video card. You have to kind of map those out or plan those out and see physically if when you start putting things in the box, are they going to fit? Because if you think that's your plan going along and then you don't have a plan B and you go to put it there and you realize it doesn't fit, similar to when I decided I was going to do this before and found out the RX 480 wouldn't fit, even though I thought it was going to, then you're stuck without a plan and you have to go back and figure out something else. Another thing, and I will show the tray, but the top tray, I guess you could call it the hard drive mount or the SSD mount. On that, when you go to put an HDD or a hard drive, regular hard drive with the platters on that, to me it looked like it was just a little bit too close to making contact in other places on that exposed PCB. I didn't like that at all. Now they do have rubber bushings in there that are mainly used for the side bracket, for the vibration in the side bracket. It took a little finagling, but I went ahead and did that, and I used those to put the hard drive onto that top bracket. Now it is going to take a little bit of patience, and you're going to have to try to line up some stuff, but if you have the patience, you can put it in there and it will work out okay. It was pretty cramped. You did have to make sure that the spacing you used, or that your cable management and stuff like that, left room around the fan. Now, it might not look quite as clean as some other builds, but you have to leave that airflow. That front fan, it's got a 120 millimeter fan to begin with that comes with a case, and then you've got to have that being able to push air back to your power supply and to your CPU. So the rubber bushings made a big deal, planning things out. And the last thing I did, or the thing that I really wanted to pay attention to, is all those little cables for the power switch and the hard drive light and all that stuff, you know, the ones that are always so hard to get to and nobody ever wants to standardize. I did those before I put the motherboard in the box. So with it sitting basically on top of it or beside it, I was able to connect those cables to make sure I got the right spot, because they are in a little bit different place, or they're a difficult spot to get to if you've already got the motherboard in. So I went ahead and connected those first, then put the motherboard down, and then went ahead and screwed it down into place. Now, also on the motherboard, and I'll show a clip of this, but I had already installed the memory, I already installed the CPU and the fan and all that stuff. So that was all together in the beginning. After that, it was just a matter of starting to plug stuff in, being very careful about where I was leaving cables. And the last thing was, before you actually go down to screw the top bracket on that has the hard drive and the SSD, probably a good bet to go ahead and hook up your SATA cables that are going to connect to those drives first. So plug them into your motherboard, leave them off to the side or bend them back out of the way or something like that. Then put that or the hard drive cage or support in on top, then plug everything back up. It's much easier to get to those when you don't have all that stuff in the way than it is to screw all that stuff down and then try to feed those down in there. Silly me, I realized that when I tried to do that the first time, I had an L connector on it, and so I had to take it back off and put regular straight connectors on, because with the L connectors it rose up too high on top of the case and it would never, the outside of the case would never go back on. Overall, the temperatures look pretty good. I didn't go ahead and take actual thermals or anything like that, but it was very cool to the touch. Even on the back of the power supply, it surprised me. And I left it going for about 2 hours because I was transferring stuff off of hard drives, off of one hard drive to another, to keep my Steam games and stuff like that on the 2 terabyte hard drive. So overall, it's done. It works. I'll show you guys footage of it actually working. And the BIOS was very easy to get into and manipulate. MSI does a really good job on their BIOS, and I appreciate that too. It's been a while since I used an MSI board. It's probably been, I don't know, 7 years, 6 years. Don't know why, other than the fact that I've just been using other boards along that way, and I haven't gotten back to using an MSI board since I believe they were known as MicroStar. So anyway, that's about it. That's the kind of the synopsis. I'll go ahead and share some video and stuff like that. But my overall impression of the box itself, it's for as compact as it is, it weighs a little bit heavier than I would have thought compact-wise, but I knew I was putting a lot of stuff in there. Most of that is the power supply. The power supply takes up probably almost half the weight, but it's going to be perfect for my needs. That with maybe a 22 or a 24-inch screen running at 1080p is going to be more than enough to do what I need to do. Or when I'm at my sister's and brother-in-law's house, I can go ahead and hook it up to a TV straight through an HDMI, and so I can hook it up to a TV and take my controller or my keyboard and mouse and all that stuff with me, and either play games on it, stream, or do some editing if I have to, if I'm making videos on the road. So overall, like I said, this isn't an instructional, it's not a how-to. I was just kind of giving a background and an update and all that kind of stuff. Very much a success. I like the case. It's very, once you figure out and do a little bit of planning, everything works very well in it. It stays a lot cooler than I thought it would. Everything went together pretty easily once I did, like I said, do a little bit of planning and figure a couple of things out. And overall, I think I'm going to be very, very happy with the case. Next up is going to be the DLM22, which is a little bit bigger than this box. It's actually going to be Amy's build. I didn't use it for my build, but I am going to use it for Amy's build. And that takes a micro ATX or a micro ITX board. We're probably going to use the micro ATX board in that, so I'll have a little bit more room for expansion if she ever decides to turn that into anything other than just office type applications, or if she gives it to her son to play games on or something like that, he can always upgrade it. So, but that will be next, but I don't know if that's going to be more of a laid out how-to type thing or step-by-step. This one was just overview because I wanted to get the thing done, and I want to make sure that I showed you guys a little bit of what was going on and what was going in it, and some of the things that I was looking out for. But that's all I got for right now. So as always, you're welcome to do that YouTube thing and share and subscribe, or you can thumbs up or thumbs down, or leave me any kind of comment. Have you built a small form factor box before? And if you did, what'd you use in it? If you didn't, what were you thinking about? If it's something you want to do, what are some of the questions you might have had that I might have run across, and maybe I can try to help you with. But anyway, that's all I got for right now, like I said, folks. So until a couple days from now when I put out an It's Thursday, I'll see you later.